Hey everybody, and welcome to episode 9 of Can We Talk About Your WordPress Projects? In this episode, we're going to talk about your requirements definition process and why you need to have that defined and in place. But before we do that, I have a few things I want to mention. First, I need to apologize for not keeping up with these Can We Talk episodes, but I just recently launched, finally, the WP Project Managers Academy, but I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a minute. The other reason is because I've been doing this whole Marie Kondo thing at home, where if you have possessions that don't bring you joy, you get rid of them, and that helps the rest of your life straighten out. I think it's called the Japanese art of tidying up. So I finally got my office cleaned up, well, except for the dog perch back there. And I reorganized and rearranged so that I could take advantage of the natural light in this room when I do these videos. It's a kind of a cloudy day today, so I don't have quite the advantage of the light, but it doesn't matter. It's not about the lighting, it's about the content. And since I've been doing this Marie Kondo thing, I've been organizing my clothes. Y'all, nobody should have this many t-shirts. Let me show you what I mean. Isn't that ridiculous? So what I've decided to do for the ones that I am keeping, every time I do an episode of Can We Talk, I'll wear a different WordPress related t-shirt that I have acquired over the last couple of years of attending all these WordCamps and other events. So today I'm wearing my Asheville 2018 WordCamp t-shirt. And this one is near and dear to my heart. I will always keep this one because this is where I gave my first WordPress talk. And the topic was how to stop scope creep once and for all. And the response I got from that talk is what made me realize that there's a need for what I'm teaching in our community. And also the difference it was making in people's lives. When I gave that talk, as I was leaving that day, some girls chased me outside to tell me how much they got out of my talk and how they were going to implement these things in their business. And then the next year when I came back the second time, they found me and said, "Oh my God, you changed my business. Now I'm getting paid for everything I do." And that was really, really heartwarming. So I will always keep this one. The other thing is you'll often see me drinking coffee when I'm doing these Can We Talk, because of course we're talking over coffee. Also because it keeps my throat from getting dry. So let me take a sip, just one second. But this coffee mug, I love coffee, and I collect coffee mugs. And this one is from WP and Up. And those of you who know me also know I love the Wapoo, our little mascot. And that press forward is the WP and Up podcast. Now, if you don't know who WP and Up is, they are an organization that is focused on mental health when it comes to what we do. You know, the whole thing is stressful, and then there's family life and work-life balance and all of those things that stress us all out. So if you're struggling with any of those things, mental health issues, WP and Up is there to help. Now, let's say you're not struggling with any of that. Well, one way you can help the community is to either donate to WP and Up or buy some swag. I saw somebody else got one of these cups over Christmas, and I had fear of missing out. I had to have one too, right? So you will see me drink out of these cups every now and then. All right, now that I've said all that, let's get on to the matter at hand, which is why you need a defined requirements definition process. Now, even though it was several weeks ago, the previous versions of this series within Can We Talk is all about the essential processes that you need to have in place for your agency or your business if you're an individual provider. So far we've talked about acceptance management, client management, issues and risk management, change management, having a defined estimating process, and communication management. And today we're going to talk about requirements definition or requirements management. Now, the principle that this falls under most closely is break the job down. And if you aren't familiar with what I'm talking about, I have a whole series on the 6 principles, the 6 productivity principles for WordPress project success. And this is a big one, break the job down. For requirements definition, the first thing is you've got to have a way to position the deep dive where you find out really most of the requirements you need to have a way to position that either as the first phase of the project or as a separate project so that number one, you get paid for it. And number two, you're going to find a lot of changes from what you came up with after that hour and a half meeting with the client when you're trying to pull the proposal together. There shouldn't be a lot of detail in the proposal anyway. So then when you move into the deep dive, that's where we get into, oh, well, that's a change. Well, that's a new requirement. But if you position that as something where you're going to be collecting new requirements, then that really helps you get paid, and it helps to establish and set the expectation with the client that we know there's going to be change. Okay, so the way the two-step proposal process works for me, the way I have it laid out, is I give a range estimate in the proposal. And once that's approved, then that first phase is all about the deep dive. And that's where we actually do the full detailed website spec. There's always things that are discovered during that process, but the client is right there with you as you've discovered these things along the way. So they're fully aware of what's being added. Then we do a second estimate at the end of that phase. And if that estimate exceeds what was in the proposal, then the client has the option to cancel. They hardly ever do because, like I said, they're right there with you as you go through this process. So they're not like, well, where'd this come from? Or why are you charging extra for that? I thought that was included. They know it wasn't included because we've identified it all along the way. But the other thing that does is it also gives you a stopping point to go, you know what, this client is just too difficult to work with. So I'm going to hand over that statement of work that they've already paid for. And then I'm going to say, you know what, this is not a good fit. Please take this specification and get someone else to build this for you. So I have done that on occasion. But and it allows you to kind of have a nice way out because everybody wins. They get what they need, which is a website spec. They can get someone else to build it. So that's how the two-step proposal process. So I highly recommend breaking it down somehow so that you're acknowledging that we know we're not estimating things we don't yet know. That's the big part. Okay. Then the next thing is to break the deep dive discovery into smaller little chunks and deliverables. And the way that I do this is during the proposal, part of the proposal process for me is after we do that first initial meeting and we get like the basic requirements, I create a visual sitemap, you know, the thing that looks like a little tree or a hierarchy. And I show that to the client. And if they're happy with that, then that's what, or I'll make changes to it if they're not. And then that's what I use to determine how many pages there are going to be and all of that sort of stuff. But you've already gotten approval from the client on that, so you're not guessing. Then after the proposal is approved, the next thing I take is as I do a layout. And I do that with wireframes, totally black and white, no design, just so we know where are all the spots that the content is going to go. Because you need to know that in order to estimate how much content there is and what are the content activities that need to take place. Then after the layout and the content, then we move on to the functional requirements of the website. What does it need to operate? How does it need to operate? What does it need to do? Collect leads? Is there a store? What are the functions of the website? Then after that, we move to the technical approach, which sometimes is pretty high level, and it's just things like where the site's going to be hosted and who's going to manage it going on, if there's care plans and things like that. So this is an example of my throat getting dry. And then sometimes the technical design is a lot more detailed, especially for clients that are more technically oriented and they want to know more of the detail of the infrastructure of what you're building for them. So I do that on a client by client basis in terms of how detailed it is. And then the final piece is the design. See, we save the design and the branding and all of that stuff for the end part. And the reason we do that is all of those other things I mentioned have an impact on the design. So why would you go ahead and do a design and then the client wants to change layout and they want to change functions and they want to change content? And if you don't do all of those things first, you've just got all this rework to do on the design. So that's the reason we break it down that way. You don't have to break it down exactly like that, but it's important to break it down into logical chunks. The elements of a good requirements definition plan are, number one, that it defines the terms business requirements, functional requirements, and technical requirements. And then it also describes the process for determining what the business requirements are. And then sometimes this kind of interlaces with your acceptance management plan because you need to spell out to the client which things are going to be approved. The requirements definition plan then needs to also include how the functional requirements are going to be derived from the business requirements, and then how are the technical requirements derived. In some cases, the technical requirements are, here's a list of plugins we use for these functions and that sort of thing. So you need to explain to the client the standard things that you always use. Maybe you always use a particular plugin for something, maybe you use a particular theme. So telling them what you chose and why is part of the requirements definition process. And then you need to define how the requirements process will actually work and what are the small chunks that it will be broken down into. And as I said before, the requirements definition plan is very closely tied to your acceptance management plan, because when you tell your client how you're breaking it down, these are the deliverables we're going to need your input and approval on, then you talk about the acceptance management plan at the same time. So there you have it. That's what you need to define for your requirements definition plan. Now, if you want to learn more about project management in general on your WordPress project and how to get projects consistently completed on time, within budget, with features that meet the client's business requirements, then I invite you to join the recently launched WP Project Managers Academy. It's free, and inside the program, there is a free course on WordPress Project Management 101. And that's all the basics. And really, it's all you really need to go and start setting up some of these processes on your own, so you can go ahead and start reaping the benefits of those things totally for free. Now, later in 2020, we're going to have some advanced training that takes that even further and has a lot of done for you stuff, as well as some lessons from subject matter experts on all the stuff that goes around project management. Like, you can't really manage projects if you don't have any. And then once you've built this for this client, what's the ongoing relationship look like, and what kind of recurring revenue and that sort of thing. But I'll tell you more about that later. You can also join our Facebook group. And if you join the Academy, there's a prompt for you to join the Facebook group, or you can just go to Facebook and search on WP Roadmaps and you should find us. Now, I do ask 3 questions when you ask to join the group. That's not to be judgy in any way. For one thing, it keeps the riffraff out, the people that are really just trying to sign up so they can come in and spam us. And it also lets me know what people are struggling with and what I need to focus the stuff on. So that's why we ask those questions. Don't be afraid of the questions, but I'm not going to let you in if you don't answer all 3 of them. It's just my rule. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope to see you inside the Academy. But if not, remember, stay productive, stay strong, and I'll see you soon.